Dear everyone, welcome again to a discussion table hosted by M2 Advisory with my guest today, Kornelia Zegiel, founder of Master4Business. And my name is Marleen Somhartje. I hope to have the discussion table around topics that we really see that everyone is working now remotely. And Cornelia already wrote a book about virtual communication, how to lead your team from a remote perspective. So that is the topic that we're going to discuss today. And I think it's very important, especially when you see that things are moving more, going back to the office. And we can shed our lights from our perspectives, from our field of expertise. So welcome, Cornelia. Welcome again.
Thank you, Marlene. I'm very happy and excited to run another discussion table with M2 Advisory and bring our experience and our point of view for such a subject like remote work and virtual team, which is super hot these days. And yeah, once again, very happy to be here.
Oh, lovely. I would really love your thoughts, especially like I said, you already wrote a book about this, and it really comes with your experience around this and working in an environment that you positioned yourself as taking remote working and remote communication as your pillars to lead your team in a certain way. So tell our audience about that.
Absolutely. I'm very happy. So as you mentioned, I wrote the book, ebook, which is like a compile guidance based on my expertise, because when I started my corporate career at the beginning, I was already put it in the setup of having virtual team. And well, my boss was remoted. So I was reporting to my boss from the distance, from different country. And at the same time, I was having a team members who were remoted. Plus, I was also leading the project from the virtual perspective. And this is very currently very exciting topic and very under discussion. However, the remote work is durable. It's possible to have a performance and keep team engaged, but needs to happen few fundamental things, which I was covering in my book. I will introduce some of them just to give our audience the glimpse about that one.
Yes,
But I
please
like,
do.
yeah, but Marlene, we also know that especially in Germany, there was a soft opening, which means companies start bringing the employees into the work. Right now, 50%, but it's still like a question mark. Should they go beyond that, or should they keep that minimum level? So I don't know, how does it look like also in Netherlands?
Now the Netherlands has the same. Actually, they saying, yeah, well, we're moving, and it's, like you said, it's just all the distances are just seeing requirements are not applicable anymore. That means that we can enter the buildings and be in the office. But then also from a 50% perspective, um, that means from certain areas that you need to combine this again, working on from home or working in the office. And I think it's a very good element saying whether do we think from our field of expertise that it's needed to be or either be totally in the office, or can you work remotely, or can you combine this, and how does this affect your performance? Because that is the reasoning behind our discussion in this, taking this from a finance perspective. Is this something that you can calculate within your budgets and will be resulted within your P&L? Are those the elements that are driving this decision from a 50% point of view? And what is the value added or being 100% near working with people? I can say from my experience, working as a consultant, it's not always feasible working 100% with the customer on premise, or it is a combination of working remote, but it doesn't affect the delivery or the performance at all. And I think we should focus the discussion on that. And that is also what you have written in your book. And from that perspective, I would really love you to shine your light on this.
Absolutely. So my opinion is no, we don't have to be in the office. Of course, we are not talking here about the production, which there is a must be in the office, and fields and the expertise where they must be in the office, otherwise they cannot run operation. But for all the departments and services which we are delivering, we don't have to be in the office. However, there is a very important trick which needs to happen to keep the performance, because it's all about keeping the performance. Of course, there is a risk that the performance might drop, But in my ebook, and also this was my experience, which I elaborate and concluded basically into 7 steps. What needs to happen, first of all, to be a leader and lead your team very effectively, and what needs to happen to be a member of such a team to still delivering on a constant basis, keeping the performance. So fundamental factor, let's tackle maybe that subject from what needs to happen from the team and leadership perspective, and then we can move the brighter view in terms of budget and advantage and disadvantage from the finance point of view.
Starts with what is the team and how does the team function, from leader perspective and positioning within the team. What are the talents? How our things are being organized in such a way that people can master their skills. That is also what you're advocating. That is how we both look at organizations. From that point of view, that needs to be reflected. If I take it how I approach companies and how would I consult them, then that needs to be reflected within your financial results, and that needs to be profitable for a longer period. We have our phrase, you don't start your business for only one day, you would like to be in business for a longer period. But how do we do that? And just tell us in the communication point of view, what is key in this? How can you just manage your team from a distance, as we can call this, or not even from a distance, because I don't perceive this as a distance. This is, if you have the virtual teams, like having team meetings or Zoom meetings, you still communicating in a level that you see the body language, that you have eye contact. And I can imagine that things like that are very important, especially taking it to the trust element and going forward, and how you can perform if you have the feeling that the infrastructure caters for that. And that is how I think that has been described in your book, but that I would love to hear it from your point of view.
Absolutely. So fundamental factor in that discussion is the leadership piece. So if the leader is giving the privilege to accepting the fact that team is going to work remotely, and then they still keep delivering. If the mindset is not there, then it's pretty hard to do other elements. But once the mindset is there that my team could be remoted, I'm trusting them, then there is the base. And then another element is how to build that trust, that even if I'm not in the office, my boss, my manager knows that I'm delivering. So first of all, the leader needs to build that trust, that confidence in the team, and the team members needs to have that confidence as well, that they are trusted and they are giving the space to deliver. So fundamentals base is the trust. How you can build the trust? Well, I can give you just a few examples. Leader needs to own their words. So whenever you promise something, just own it, deliver that. Be vulnerable. This is element which start coming more often, especially in the pandemic side, when we need to deal with our kids at home, when the environment is not super perfect. Be vulnerable. If you have a days where you cannot be at your best, just share it, and share it with your boss, and also share it among your teams. So this should be there. And of course, another element in terms of building the trust is self-promotion. Leader supposed to promote not himself, in front of others, but standing and be advocate for the team members. So those are the basic things which we can talk about, building the trust. So like I said, when the trust is there, then is a ground to start implementing other operational element. So this operational element is managing the results, because very often, this is the stereotype saying, if I don't see my team working, they are not working, which if you having that mindset as a leader, well, skip that one, because this shouldn't be there if you have a remote team or you are managing your team. So basically, you shouldn't manage the time which they spend. You should manage the results. Isn't it? This is.
You should manage on output. It's all about, it's not, obviously we would like to see a efficient process, but it's all about what is the output, because at the end of the day, that is what the delivery is all about. And that should be the mindset, and doesn't matter. And I learned that from the early days when I started as a consultant, no matter where you deliver, as long as you deliver, and as long as you deliver what you promised on time. And if you cannot make it, tell them, just manage the expectations that you're not delivering as such. That is also not the case, but it's all about communicating and all about setting the expectations right for what time can we. Hearing you saying this is also how I was being raised within the consultants. Think that that is also what you're telling your managers, and in writing in your book, how you can at least have key elements in place to manage from a remote perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Results, they speak by themselves. But of course, once the results are there are some work which needs to be done from the leadership perspective. So like I said, another third element is regular communication. And you need to make a decision. What does it mean regular for me, and how often? Not too much, not too less, but at least whenever the team is getting a weekly task or ad hoc task, they need to know what to do. And they need to feel comfortable in terms of giving them the exact deadline and what is expected from them to be completed. Because sometimes might be different perception what is completed, what is considered as a completed from the person who needs to deliver the task versus the one who is giving the task. So that space needs to be clarified in our weekly meetings. Or it depends how you want to set up, but that communication needs to be there. And of course, giving your team the voice to speak up whenever they see the obstacles. So I'm very supporting this kind of leadership, and this is how I'm working as well with my teams. We are experienced in their areas, but whenever we see obstacles, we need to immediately raise the hand. Don't feel embarrassed or that we need help, and the others could quickly jump and support each other. I'm saying that like a staffette run, when one is giving the stick to another one, another could carry over and help to deliver that task. So this is the third element, like I mentioned. And another thing which is also very important, but sometimes neglected, it's a clear communication. What I mean by that, if the virtual and technology is coming in place, people used to get stuck with the technology, mainly with the email as a primary tool. But when I'm asking sometimes my team members and say, okay, what is the response? Well, I sent an email, but I didn't get the response. I said, did you grab the phone and just call that person? Or, we used to have this tendency stuck in one communication channel, which primary is the email, skipping a very human natural thing, just grabbing the phone and be disruptive in that sense. But I'm not saying, Marlene, don't start chasing your email, because once you send the email, you're immediately grabbing the phone and calling. No, give the time to digest a little bit. And in my ebook, we can also link it to our audience, giving tips regarding how to structure that email communication, which saves a lot of the email chain. Who should be put it, how the subject line is powerful, because if our receiver is a little bit hesitant or doesn't know what's going on with the first subject line, that email will be put on the waiting list instead of be quickly tagged and put in the action mode or channel. So in my ebook, I clearly explaining the phrases, how it should be structured. And another key rules in that area is, if you cannot summarize, this is what I'm implementing and doing, and also teaching others, if you cannot give the explanation in 5 sentences basically, set up immediately that email. Don't wait and waste the time in the email chain, because I can guarantee you, after 2-3 days, email chain back and forth, you will end up with the email conversation, actually face-to-face conversation. Yeah, and another element is rules of responsiveness, which means if you are out or somebody in your team is out, clearly set up a backup process. What I mean by that, quick access also into the documentation, which is another element, virtual library. So once we talk about the remote work, first of all, setup needs to be correct, knowing who is doing what. We need to know very well tools which we are going to use, those, like I said, not only email, use the communicator, use the phone, be fan of 30 minutes meeting, operational ones. I'm not talking about, big explanation strategy whatsoever. Make that work efficient, and be clear about your roles as a leader. What you expect. If you send an email, your members should know, team members should know what your expectation. They should quickly reach out to you, maybe they should wait. What are your rules, how you operating? Once they know that behaviors from you as a leader, then it's easy for them to operate. And another element which I'm a big advocate for, that you can adjust your performance, your individual performance, into the performance of the corporate or the organization which you are delivering. Because some people, they are super active in a daily and in a morning base, some of them in the evening, some of them at the same time having responsibilities like kids. For me, it's very okay if my team members think, what, I cannot be active. I start be active, let's say from 10 o'clock, because I need to make all the stuff with the kids. But then he or she will be making a little bit longer hours afterwards, in the evening. So it's also okay. Or maybe during the day, because they need to pick up the kids from the school. So in that sense, it's creating the human being environment more openness, more vulnerable, and at the same time, the results, they are better, instead of forcing us or forcing others into that mode. Yeah.
True. Now, powerful elements that you discuss, and then really going back to what is the reasoning that we have this now in our discussion table was all about. All the elements that we're now seeing, are they taking in such a way into consideration that the performance is still 100% in this one, and if you implement what the elements that you just discussed, I think you can at least reach 90% in this, which is obviously you still have your downtime in this, but that is very acceptable within the threshold. But it's very important to understand that not everything needs to be in place, but you need to utilize everything that is within your power. So just summarizing in this, using email, calling people, try to at least see whether you can schedule something, a meeting that is very effective. So not long meetings, but just short and sweet messages and very clear directions on how to communicate and how what you expect about the delivery and the end result. I think taking that, it's very important, and seeing that those are the elements that are very key for clear communication, and also going back and working from only, even though it's 50%, you still need to have this into place, because it helps you taking you and perform from an end-to-end perspective, and that is what that's why we have the discussion. The other element that I want to discuss in this is the financial part in this. You see this reflected within your budget, and just only working with 50% in the office means that you can cater or allocate 50% to other things. And is that going back to the performance, is that a one-to-one direct connection that we can make, or do we need to take other elements into consideration from an indirect perspective, but still driving it from performances and still having your profitability in place? What is your opinion about that?
Okay, happy to share that, Marlene. Absolutely. This is what the majority of the companies noticed, definitely in 2020 and this year as well. There was a lot of savings due to office space costs. So this is given. And of course, if we consider also travel part, that one was downgraded. So from the profitability and from the budget perspective, put us the savings. But another element is how, what will be the individual strategy for individual companies. So those savings potential which we could generate, it could be allocated in a different way. In my opinion, it should be given back to the employees, like increasing their skills, increasing their performance, to deliver better, and then you might argue it should be given back, like a setting up the offices in home offices, or it should be given back due to investment in terms of trainings and all other areas which are needed to perform. And then another factor which you can consider is what about the investment or innovation which we can do regarding that aspect. So all of this is also improving our cash flow, which we know already, but the fundamental thing which management would ask the question about what we are going to do and what is going to work from the long strategy perspective as a company. Because my advocacy on that is it's not the product, it's not the services per se we are delivering, but behind those product and services which are offering to the market, those are the people. And those people, they need to have, first of all, right now, safe environment, which we need to create as a leaders to still delivering at the best in their case, and they still want to work for that logo and name of that company. But from the investment point of view, I highly believe those money should be also given back to the employees in that sense, to increase their performance to deliver better. And at the same time, of course, if we're moving to remote work, the question is, are we ready to do that? Because I was also hearing from my colleagues, they were in the organizations where they were not capable to do it. Very, very trivial example, like laptops. You need to have tools to be able to work. And you are big advocacy for security, to make sure that everything what we do moving from the office, safe environment, secure environment, if we are doing that, it's also safe from a data-driven perspective. I'm talking here about the VPNs, security, laptops.
No, true. Yeah. It is, you really touch a very important point in this, and just and taking it from a finance perspective, and if this fits within your strategy and the growth strategy should be that your infrastructure is robust, is secured, and is built in such a way that everyone can enter it easily. So that is the difficulty that you've seen last year, and the ambiguity in the numbers that you see is not the savings, because the savings just went through to the end of the book year. And for example, you will see it in this year if we took that into consideration, but I think you will see that in 2022 before we can adjust our budgets, if the savings that we had occasionally thought that we were making are even there. And then a very important question in this is how are we going to allocate the investments that we have? And you said people are very important, but I think, and also the topic that you mentioned, and I think is very important, is the infrastructure. Going to more digitalization, going to more remote working, or even thinking about being data-driven from a certain level of perspective, that means that your infrastructure, your IT infrastructure, is a robust, secure, and safe environment where everyone can work and enter easily. And if that is not in place, it's very difficult to see whether the performance that you have are the same level as you did before. So the benchmark is very difficult in this, taking it from a financial point of view, and then also from a performance point of view. Because if everyone's working with their own computers and not having a secure environment, if a data breach is there, it could easily be that is just going, it will be worked towards your reputation of your company. So it really needs to be carefully weighed against the pond, and the strategy should be very clear that if you take that into consideration, investing in your people, you should also be investing in the infrastructure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Marlene, whenever the new environment is coming into the place, I like to tackle that or any subject looking from the SWOT analysis perspective. It's a very, very simple tool which we learn in our studies. However, that tool we can also use even looking through the lens of the current situation, like digitalization. What kind of opportunities, of course, people, they having tendency looking more in terms of opportunities. But on the coin is always having a two sides, you know. One is the opportunity, which easily to identify, but more difficult to identify the risk or the threats which we cannot see it. And like you just mentioned, cybersecurity, it's the thing which is misled, or maybe put it on a next step. Once it's going to happen, once it's going to hit you, then it's like, oh my gosh, it's a disaster, you know what I mean? But we should also look for every situation in a business, or also in our operational side. What does it this situation is going to give me? What are the opportunities? Of course, remote work, flexibility. We are saving time, even if we need to travel. Yeah, but at the same time, what are the risks which we have? You know, maintaining the team, still having the high performance, or even better. You know, I mean, how we can even improve that, and even looking on the external one, like you mentioned, infrastructure. Opportunity, what does it mean for us? Okay, we don't have as many assets, maybe we don't have these office spaces which we can save, kind of, you know what I mean? But what we do with this money needs to be somehow reallocated in this security area, which is key, you know. And that would be my advice in that subject, and still be adaptable, you know, because whatever, every situation is happening, you know, for the leaders, running the teams, or even recruiting and doing onboarding stuff. You know, we also had in our team a member who started, you know, at the beginning when pandemic hit it, and for her it was like, oh my gosh, how can I learn everything? But guess what? You can do it once you put a game plan behind it. Once that person is going to feel constant support, you know, from the leader, from the team members, and, you know, like I just mentioning those elements, the library, constant meeting, clear communication. And like I said, more depth, you can read it in the ebook, but those are the tiny things, but which are making the game change, you know, in the long term.
Yes, beautiful final thoughts in this. It's all about how we're going to change the game in a longer period. I think this situation will stay for a longer period. But even though if we're going back to how people say and call it the normal, still I think from a consultancy perspective, it has always been there that people are working remotely, or it doesn't impact the performance. And it requires a certain level of thinking, a certain strategic way of thinking, and how can I implement this within my organization, and taking the elements as people and processes and infrastructure in place, and how does it impact it. And so, and the SWOT analysis on this is very important, that you can see where it's being impacted, or where you need to at least take more appropriate action to mitigate all the risk in this. We did not even take the risk elements into consideration, because taking cybersecurity, taking elements out of this, that it needs to be the next level within risk management. How do we implement that? How is that embedded? How can we allocate for that, so that it's that we're prepared when it does occur? But on the other hand, I think if you take it from a financial point of view, it's very important to see whether the numbers that we're now presenting, whether they're not ambiguous, because we think that we're saving money in this. But on the other hand, we had to make other investments to have our performance still running from the same perspective. So from my point of view, I would really love to have the discussion table presented in such a way that we discuss the communication part in this, which is very important in your ebook. But we also said, what is the impact on the people, how they perform, and how you can maintain your financial results in this. We'd love to talk about you more in more discussion tables. So I invite you to follow us on our YouTube channels, and we would love to hear from you soon. Thank you for your participation, Kornelia.
Thank you, and looking forward for the next discussion table, Marlene. Talk to you.
Thank you.